So we were established in 1897 by the then King to improve healthcare in London. So at that time we were very much involved in offering grants to hospitals in London. Initially opposed to the inception of the NHS, we came on board later on and had a remit again to improve health and healthcare in London. That has since been extended, so we now have a national remit. Our work divides broadly into three areas. So one, we have a big policy department. We offer non-party political critique and advice to policymakers. So trainees may have heard people like John Appleby on the radio, Chris Ham, our chief executive, Anna Dixon, our director of policy, often about, especially at the moment or in recent months with the white paper, that you hear our policy people kind of critiquing, advising. So that's a key role that we play. Secondly, these are in no particular order. Secondly, we have a big leadership development arm. So we work with clinical and non-clinical leaders across the system, across England and beyond actually. So whether that's working with doctors from kind of specialist trainee level right up to clinical directors, medical directors, whether that's working with managers, again, of all different grades, nurses, allied health professionals. We run a whole range of development courses, development programmes, or undertake organisational development work within organisations. So we've got a big brief around that. And the third arm that trainees might be interested in knowing about is we've got a big information services department, so library services, and crucially quite a big web-based presence. So I'll be talking with trainees on their first module about how they could use those services, which they may find really helpful for their specialist qualifications as well as for working with us. We'll be running something called Experiential Learning, and my guess is that trainees won't have had much contact with this type of education before. It's really quite different from your traditional academic model where there's a body of knowledge, people come along to learn that body of knowledge and go away with their heads filled, questionably whether they have got any kind of practical resources at their disposal to use as a result of that. So what we really focus on is working with trainees to give them an experience of something, so they really live and feel something. We then reflect with them on what they've done and try and distill the learning from that. It's quite difficult to get your head round in the abstract, so let me give you a practical example. So one thing we know about trainees is that making the transition, particularly as many come direct from university, making the transition from academia into their first really full-time role where they've got considerable responsibilities, managing staff, working with other professionals, one of the problems can be about how do you communicate really effectively? How do you present yourself with real impact and with real kind of verve and vigour? Be the best you can be. So we'll be working in one of the modules very early on, communicating with impact, looking at working with an actor, a director, helping individuals to look at how they present themselves. What can they do with their body language? What can they do with their voice? How can they occupy the space, as it were? How can they, really kind of take hold of this responsibility and power that they've got and be really impactful? We also find that they have to do presentations at work, or they have to do presentations with other education providers, but presenting to a board or presenting to your team or presenting to a group of nurses demand quite different skills in different places. So we'll be working with them through those skills. So very practical application. So that's communicating with impact. On the other hand, we may look towards a later module where we'll be helping trainees to understand the whole system, how the whole system fits together. So that'll be a combination. It's a big game, a big simulation that people will be in, gathering evidence, watching videos, and analysing and synthesising the data that they gather with a team of colleagues. So what they're doing there is learning a whole range of different skills. Yes, there's something about absorbing knowledge, but how do you synthesize information? How do you analyze information? Crucially, what impact do I have as a member of a group? How do I understand how this group works? How do I bring the best out in people? All really core leadership skills in the NHS at the moment. We'll be using a range of delivery methods with trainees throughout their 2 years. So yeah, we'll do a little bit, a very little bit of kind of you sit in the room, I'll stand at the front and I'll talk you through some theories. It's really small in experiential learning of that kind of thing. More commonly, we'll use a whole mix of experiential methodologies. So it might be a simulation. So you're going to be part of an executive team or consultants to an executive team, and we'll set up a simulation and you operate as that team throughout the simulation. We might use games, so we've got games that illustrate how power works in organisations. We've got games that help people to distill learning from some of the theories. We might set you out on real projects, so we might put you into an organisation to do some consultancy, real consultancy with that organisation, looking at how they deal with quality or something like that. So we're going to use a whole range of methods, but what you can be absolutely sure of as a trainee is that you will not be sitting in a classroom listening to lectures for a day or 2 days. That's absolutely not how we work. Really, really crucially, we will be also spending a significant amount of time on reflection and helping to trainees to really distill what they've heard, what they've learned, and how they can apply it. Because the only point of doing all of this is if it makes a difference to people's leadership and management practice in practice. Trainees will spend lots of their academic components within their specialisms. We don't work within specialisms, we work completely cross specialisms. So trainees will be working broadly in geographical areas. We'll be working with groups of about 30 for the majority of the modules, although there are 2 modules where we'll be bringing the trainees together in much bigger groups. The last module that they have will be all of the trainees working together as one big cohort. We think there's a lot to be gained with working across the specialisms. There's loads that HR trainees can learn from finance, and general management trainees simply have to have an understanding of finance, HR, informatics to be able to do their day-to-day work. We really encourage trainees in our modules to push themselves out of their comfort zone, to not stick to their specialism, but to work beyond that, because that's where there's real learning to be had. We don't assess this element of their education provision. I think that we really focus on making sure that this is of real, practical, valuable use. You come to us, you work with us for a day or 2 days, and we'd be expecting you to apply this back to the workplace. What we found in previous years is often our work gets picked up then in action learning sets to help reinforce that application. But as far as formal assessment goes, I'm not marking any essays, there'll be no formal assessment with us. We will expect trainees to do a little bit of preparation for some of our modules. It might be reading a couple of short articles. It might be something like going and observing a board, and we'll give some observation criteria for them to work against. It might be something like exploring how private industry delivers quality services, which could be, go and check out what Pret are doing, go and check out what Marks are doing. So it won't be kind of sit down and read lots of stuff before you come to us, but we might want a bit of practical engagement before they come. They'll then work with us on the day or the 2 days, and then we'd be expecting some application. But as I said before, there's no formal assessment of that application.